Start recording, Mataji. Welcome to Bhakti Sangha conference call. Today we are very fortunate to have Her Grace Preethi Vilasini Mataji to enlighten us on Shri Brihad Bhagavatamrta. So thank you so much, Mataji, for giving your valuable association and time. Now I would like to hand over the call to you, Mataji. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Madhuri Mataji, and thanks to all the devotees for joining, and thanks to all of you for the very, very wonderful chanting, especially the children. It was very beautiful. Thank you so much. We'll start with the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Krupa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurum Deenatarinam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschayate Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. My humble obeisances to all the Vaishnavas on the call. All glories to Srila Sanatana Goswami, the author of Shri Brihad Bhagavatamrta. So we are continuing our study of Brihad Bhagavatamrta. Yes, we are nearing the ending, but we have not yet ended. Today is session 44, and we are going to conclude the glories of the gopis at this point. That is what we will be doing today. And then we'll have one more session where we really do the conclusion of what Parikshit Maharaj said to Mother Uttara, the Phalashruti. And after that, we will move on to a quick summary of the entire Brihad Bhagavatamrta, both book 1 and book 2. We'll do it really fast. We'll see what all we have seen throughout the entire study of Brihad Bhagavatamrta in the past 2 years. So it's going to be 2 years, and we'll end the next week, hopefully Krishna willing. I hope it doesn't get extended even further. If it gets also, it's Krishna's will. So we'll be completing next week. But today we will continue to see the glories of the gopis. As I've already mentioned, the glories of the gopis is actually the chief essence of the entire Brihad Bhagavatamrta. So Sanatana Goswami has taken a lot of time to explain in detail about the gopis, both in book 1 and book 2. So we have another session on the glories of the gopis. And these verses that we will be seeing today from the Bhagavatam, as quoted by Parikshit Maharaj to Mother Uttara in the Brihad Bhagavatamrta, are the verses that Uddhava spoke when he visited Vrindavan. So we saw that even in our previous few sessions that Uddhava was the chosen one to go and give the message to the gopis. So what is it that Uddhava realized after meeting the gopis? There are some very beautiful verses from the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam in chapter 47. These are verses 56 to 81. So these are the verses that we're going to see, and we will see these verses in the light of how Srila Sanatana Goswami has analyzed it. So that is what we are going to do today. We'll start with the first one. This is Srimad Bhagavatam, canto 10, chapter 47, 58. Eta param tanubhrito bhuvi gopavadvo govindayeva nikilatma nirudha bhava vanchanti yat bhavabiyo munayo vayam cha kim brahma janma bhirananta katarasaya. Translation. Among all persons on earth, these cowherd women along have actually perfected their embodied lives. for they have achieved the perfection of unalloyed devotion or unalloyed love for Lord Govinda. Their pure love is hankered after by those who fear material existence, by great sages, and by ourselves as well. For one who has tasted the narrations of the infinite Lord, what is the use of taking birth as a high class Brahmana or even as Lord Brahma himself? Very beautiful realization by Uddhava. Sri Uddhava is telling that these women have actually perfected their embodied lives, meaning the whole purpose of human life has been perfected only by these gopis of Vrindavan because they have achieved unalloyed love for Krishna. Why have they perfected their lives? Because they have achieved this unalloyed devotion to Krishna. And their pure love is very, very rare. Even great sages and great devotees like Uddhava, who are associates of the Lord, even they are hankering after this love that the gopis have achieved. And for one who has tasted these infinite narrations of the infinite Lord, the Lord is infinite, his glories are infinite. Even Sesha is trying hard to cope up with the wonderful pastimes and infinite glories of the Lord. So he's Ananta, the Lord is Ananta, and the glories of Krishna are never ending. So these narrations of the infinite Lord, for one who has tasted this, for him, what is the use of a high birth or even birth as Lord Brahma? All that is useless. So actually, he's talking about the glories of the gopis. It is better to be born in the land of Vrindavan than do anything else. So that is the purport of this verse in short. So now we are going to see how Sanatana Goswami analyzes this wonderful verse spoken by Sri Uddhava. So of course, as we said, the background of this verse is that it was spoken by Sri Uddhava during his visit to Vrindavan. And Uddhava has a very good reputation of being an exalted Vaishnava. And we see that throughout the Bhagavatam. He's definitely an eternal associate of the Lord. And he had constant association of the Lord in Dwaraka. In the book 1, we saw how he was always with Krishna in Dwaraka. Even during Krishna's private moments, Uddhava was the selected one to be with Krishna. So he was a very good friend, he was a minister, he was a servant, he was everything for Krishna. So Uddhava was definitely a great Vaishnava, and to get the testimony of the gopis from a great Vaishnava is definitely very precious. So therefore, these verses spoken by Uddhava, they hold a lot of importance in our understanding of the greatness of the gopis. Not only that, Uddhava is also the favorite student of Brihaspati. Brihaspati is the spiritual master of the demigods. Uddhava had learned from Brihaspati, and he was a very trusted minister of Dwaraka. So whenever Krishna had anything that he wanted to ask, he would go and ask Uddhava's opinion on things. So Krishna is the Supreme Lord. He doesn't need advice or opinions. He can take decisions by himself, but still, in the sweetness of the relationship that he had with Uddhava, oftentimes he would go and ask Uddhava for advice. One of the times that is mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam is when Krishna actually wanted to kill this Jarasandha, at the same time attend the sacrifice performed by Yudhishthir Maharaj. So he took advice from Uddhava, and then Uddhava advised him that he should take Bhima and Arjuna, and Bhima should be the one who's killing Jarasandha by the grand advice of Lord Sri Krishna and the efficacy of the presence of Arjuna. So like this, Uddhava gave wonderful advices, and then he said, once you're done with that, you should attend the Rajasuya Yajna. Conducted by Yudhishthir Maharaj, because by now all the kings who are opposing Yudhishthir Maharaj's rule would be vanquished. So like that, Uddhava would give very good advice, and definitely he was very intelligent and well learned. So like that, we see in many places that even Lord Sri Krishna was praising Uddhava in various ways throughout the Bhagavatam. Like for example, in the 11th canto, there is an elaborate conversation between Uddhava and Krishna. And Krishna himself praises Uddhava. This is 11th canto, chapter 1, verse number 49. Lord Sri Krishna says, "My dear Uddhava, O beloved of the Yadu dynasty, because you are my servant, well-wisher and friend, I shall now speak to you the most confidential knowledge. Please hear as I explain these great mysteries to you. So even when Krishna wanted to speak something very confidential, he would choose his very dear devotees. Like for example, in the Bhagavad Gita, we see how Krishna actually chose Arjuna because Arjuna was his dear friend. He was non-envious and he was a well-wisher. So similarly, one another person that Krishna chose to speak confidential knowledge in the Srimad Bhagavatam was Sri Uddhava. Then again in the 11th canto in chapter 16, he tells this to Uddhava very personally. He says, among those entitled to the name Bhagavan, I am Vasudeva, and indeed you, Uddhava, represent me among the devotees. So you see the position that is given to Uddhava. Among the devotees, he says, Uddhava represents all the devotees. And he says, I am Hanuman among the Kimpurushas and I am Vidyadharas among Sudarshana. So there's a very beautiful verse that talks about the glory of Uddhava. Uddhava is being praised by the lotus mouth of Sri Krishna. Then in another place, this is in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a very celebrated verse, and Srila Sanatana Goswami has quoted this verse over and over in so many places in Book 2. Several places this verse is being quoted. This is again the glory of Uddhava, who's representing all the devotees. This is Canto 1, Chapter 14, verse number 19. It says, my dear Uddhava, neither Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, nor the goddess of fortune, nor indeed myself, nor Lord Sankarshana is dear to me as you. So he is talking about the glories of devotees, that the devotee is very, very dear to the Lord. Even his own self or his close associates may not be as dear to the Lord as his devotee. And Uddhava is the chief representative of such great devotees. So these are many places where Krishna glorifies Uddhava. Now, this should not be misunderstood to think that only Uddhava is the greatest devotee since he's representing the devotees. It's not like that. It is when Uddhava was with Krishna, Krishna definitely acknowledged his glories, just like how he would acknowledge the glories of Arjuna from time to time when he was speaking the Bhagavad Gita. So it is to be understood like that. But definitely Uddhava is very, very special because he did have a lot of association of Krishna and Dwaraka, and he was constantly thinking of Krishna all the time since childhood. And that is also mentioned in the first canto. Since he was a child, he would constantly be thinking about Krishna. So definitely Uddhava is very special. So when this Uddhava was sent as a confidential messenger, now Uddhava was very confidential servant of the Lord, or rather associate of the Lord. So he was sent as a confidential messenger to Vrindavan with a confidential message of Krishna. So this is a very confidential message. Uh, when see when something very special has to be told, that is very, very confidential to his most confidential devotees, then Krishna would definitely pick a very suitable messenger. So Uddhava was such a suitable messenger, and he took the message of Krishna to Vrindavan, and he used all his diplomatic skills to deliver Krishna's message in such a way that all the agony of the gopis would be relieved because they were really suffering from the separation of Krishna. So we saw he's the disciple of Brihaspati and he's the minister of Krishna. So definitely he must have a lot of skills in the way he delivers a message. But then, even after delivering the message so perfectly in a very skillful manner, after hearing the message, the gopis, they became even more deeply immersed in an ocean of distress. And it became even worse for them. It became worse after listening to what the message had to be told from Sri Krishna by Uddhava. Uddhava was astonished. He was just astonished by the extraordinary intensity of the attachment that the gopis had for Krishna. This was extraordinary. And he had never heard of such pure devotional surrender. This is what surrender is, and the gopis had exemplified it to such perfection. So therefore, before leaving Vrindavan, Uddhava, he began speaking these beautiful verses that we just quoted. Actually, there were about 6 verses that Uddhava said towards the end of the chapter after meeting the gopis of Vrindavan. So the first verse was this verse that he spoke. He was paying his homage to the gopis and their pure devotion to Krishna. So he says that actually these gopis, they are the topmost of all realized souls, and they are some of the best devotees of Lord Sri Krishna. And these cowherd women in the village of Nanda, they have perfected their lives because they have realized the full potential of human life. And that is the first thing that he says. He says, Tanu Bhrutod Bhuvi, they have realized the perfection of human life. And definitely perfection of human life on earth, he says, because in the higher planetary systems it should be understood that even if there are devotees in the higher planetary systems, it is very difficult for them to perform pure devotional service in the mood of complete surrender. It is very, very hard, because actually purpose of human life can be easily achieved on earth, uh, because earth is very conducive for performing devotional service because of minimum distractions. uh, in the higher planetary systems there is so much opulence, there is so much desire to enjoy power and sense gratification that it becomes very hard to perform devotional service. So even the demigods and exalted personalities who live in the higher regions, they can never perfect their lives like the gopis did on the earthly realm. So therefore, specifically here in this verse, Uddhava says that Tanu Brito Bhuvi, on earth, these women, these ladies in Nanda Maharaj's village of Vrindavan, sorry, in Vrindavan, they have actually perfected their lives. Yeah, so it can also be understood in another way. This phrase "Tanu Bhrutva Bhuvi," it can be understood in another way that these gopis, they have perfected the life on earth for everybody. How? Because they are sharing this rare gift of prema bhakti. The gopis, by exhibiting this prema bhakti, they are showing to the world and they are delivering all the fallen conditioned souls of this earth. They are showing what is real surrender, how to perform devotional service. So, because of the devotion that was performed by the gopis, all the lives of all the people on earth is being nourished. It is such a beautiful understanding. Because of them, everyone else is being nourished. They are being beneficial to everyone, whatever activities they did. And because they have this unalloyed love for Lord Sri Govinda, who is the enlivener of the senses and the cows, they have actually enlivened the life of everyone else in this world. So that's why we say we are followers of the residents of Vrindavan, right? So the residents of Vrindavan, they are actually the real examples of devotees to follow. Especially the gopis of Vrindavan, they have perfected uh, being the topmost examples. So like this, he glorifies the gopis. The other thing is that the gopis, for a very, very long time, they had endured in their hearts the pain of separation from Krishna. But after receiving this message from Uddhava, they could no longer hold themselves. And Uddhava, he became a witness of seeing the uncontrollable waves of complete distress that they were undergoing after receiving this message. And the ecstasy of the gopis that they were feeling in separation from Krishna made the whole world cry because of the empathy that we all have as Vaishnavas for the gopis. So that therefore, this Krishna, he is Krishna Nikilatma, meaning he is the soul of all living beings. The word says he is Krishna as Nikilatma. He is the super soul of all living beings. But then for the gopis, Krishna was their very life and soul. So in that sense, literally for the gopis, Krishna was their very self. There's a difference. For everyone else, Krishna is their super soul. Krishna is, yes, he's Nikhilatma. He lives in the heart and he's the guide and he's the super soul. He's the well-wisher. He's everything. But for the gopis, he's the self themselves. I mean, for them, everything is Krishna. So therefore, he's Nikhilatma for each gopi. Because the gopis, they cherish Krishna as literally as their own self. So heart and soul of the gopis is Krishna. So like this, the gopis are very, very special. In this world, there are many people who are trying to attain liberation. They are called as mumukshus. They have desire for liberation or aspirants of liberation. Because they don't want this material existence. They are fearful of material existence. And there are also others who are self-satisfied Vaishnavas, the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. There are mumukshus who are aspiring for liberation because they are fed up with this material world. And there are also Vaishnava devotees who want to serve the Lord. So there are two kinds of perfected beings or liberated souls. But then the best of all of them, Uddhava is saying, is to be the gopis. The gopis are the best of all, and he wants to become a sincere servant of the gopis who can only, and in his capability as a devotee, he's only able to admire the gopis from a distance. He's not really able to follow the gopis. Uddhava is telling, like really become an aspirant of a follower of a gopi, but rather he's only able to admire the love of the gopis, being an ordinary devotee. So this is how Uddhava feels when he's saying this verse. And also he talks about Brahma and uh, birth as a Brahmana and all that, right? So he's saying, yeah, there are many Brahmanas in this world, but nobody can even go near the gopis in any way, because they can only stand at a distance and then admire them and think that someday I wish I develop a spark of the love that the gopis have attained. No, but then when we talk about Brahma, isn't Brahma greater than all the gopis, and he's the greatest of all Vaishnavas? He's the guru of our Brahma Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya, and he's the original guru of the path of devotional service. He sits on the high seat of the material universe. He's the topmost devotee, topmost engineer. So Brahma is definitely great, but then Uddhava somehow he says that yeah, Brahma is very great, but then for a person who has tasted the unlimited glories of Krishna, Ananta Katha, the unlimited Katha of the unlimited Lord, when one tastes this Krishna Katha, when one has developed taste for hearing and chanting the unlimited glories of Krishna, for them, what use is of being Brahma, or what use is there of taking birth as a Brahmana? All that is useless. Even that great seat of Brahma, even being that, topmost engineer of this universe, topmost creator, topmost devotee, the son of the Lord, all this doesn't matter at all for one who has taken to tasting this Harinam, tasting Harikatha. So just taking birth as a Brahmana or even becoming Brahma is only unnecessary distraction for them. Because unnecessary distraction, because of post and power, automatically there is pride. Then we have seen how people in great posts, they definitely get bewildered, and we have seen this case in Vin and Brahma. Brahma was also bewildered, and so many high caste Brahmanas, just because they become very proud of their birth and education, they become very, very bewildered. Like the Yajnik Brahmins that we read in the 10th canto, their wives were so humble and they could relish love for Krishna. But these Brahmanas who were very puffed up because of their great Brahmanical qualities were definitely bewildered. So therefore, Uddhava is saying, what's the use of all that? A person who has tasted Ananta Katha, who has tasted this wonderful glories of the Lord, chanting and hearing about the Lord, he doesn't care for all that. So therefore, the gopis are definitely the best of the devotees. Then, if someone has no interest in hearing the Lord's Ananta Katha, then, but okay, someone you say doesn't have any interest in hearing about the Lord's Katha. So, is it good for him to take birth as Brahma? But really, Uddhava is saying even that is of no value, because just by becoming Brahma, you do not perfect your life. Real perfection of life is if you can really seriously take up this devotional practice, because devotional practice is the real fruit of renunciation or any sort of liberation. It is only devotional service. So if one can humbly take up this path of devotional service, following in the mood of the gopis, or at least looking at them from a distance and learning from them, then only one can actually perfect their life. And there are so many levels of self-realization that is being taught in the Vedas, like you have dharma, artha, kama, moksha, all this is there. Even Brahma Janma can be understood to mean acquiring Vedic knowledge. If one has studied the Vedas so perfectly and he has acquired a lot of Vedic knowledge, even then what is the use? Because unless one comes to the platform of Krishna consciousness, unless one comes to the platform of relishing Krishna Katha, there is actually no value for anything. And a person who has really relished this and who has come to that platform has nothing to gain from all these elaborate Vedic study or theoretical knowledge or understanding the spirit that is different from matter. So you see in various systems of philosophy, they are trying to distinguish between matter and spirit, and they are counting the atoms of the universe, Sankhya, Vaisheshika. Like that, there are so many systems of philosophy that has been enunciated by the Vedas. But is it of any use? What is the use of all that? Because ultimately, if until one comes to the platform of pure devotional service, all this education is useless. Everything else is useless. So that is the only true fruit that is to be obtained by studying the Vedas, pure devotional service and Ananta Katharuchi. That is the only thing that one must attain. So when one has attained such a great goal, then definitely he's not going to worry about what all these Vedas are elaborately talking about. Just like when a person has lost something in the dark, he takes a lamp and he goes around searching for it. So once he has obtained the object, okay, one he has, for example, I have lost my ring in the dark of night, there is no electricity, and I hold a candle or I hold an emergency lamp that has a battery lamp. I just take it, a light, a torch. I just go around searching for my ring, and I find my ring. The minute I take my ring, is the torch any more important for me unless I have some other activity to do? It's not very important. I found my ring, I put my ring, and I go to sleep. I'm done. So therefore, this all this elaborate education that is there in the Vedas, they are only useful until you find the ring, until you find the goal of life, which is taste for Krishna Katha. So once you have developed that, once you have developed that for hearing the glories of the Lord and chanting the holy names, then the rest of it really doesn't matter. But however, when a person doesn't attain the goal, but he remains stuck and attached to the means, then he's just beating empty husks of grain. In the villages, they beat husks of grain to take out the grain. Once the grains are removed, the crops are removed, they beat it. Why? Because the grains will come out. But what if the husk is empty? There is no grain within it. What's the point of beating it over and over? You're not going to get anything. So, if you're just getting too attached to all this, Srila Sanatana Goswami is saying that there's no use. It's like just beating husks of empty grain, empty husks of grain. So therefore, such a person is actually definitely very highly situated, and he can never give up the chanting and hearing of the Lord's glories. And these gopis are definitely the most fortunate of all women because they have this rarest quality of love for Govinda. Even at this point in time, we see in the Bhagavatam how the gopis headed by Srimati Radharani, they were just talking something, they were thinking about Krishna, and they were just in so much relishment of what was happening with them when Krishna was present. So like this, the gopis, they have really achieved this perfection of life, and there is no use of us just getting stuck in something else. Then pursue pure devotional service in the mood of following the gopis. Even if we follow from a distance, that is very, very good. So that is what is being told in this verse. The next verse from the same chapter, Sanatana Goswami picks this verse. Of course, Parikshit Maharaj is telling this verse to Mother Uttara. This verse is the next verse of this chapter. The translation is, how amazing it is that these simple women who wander about the forest, seemingly spoiled by improper behavior, have achieved the perfection of unalloyed love for Krishna, the Supreme Soul. Still, it is true that the Supreme Lord himself awards his blessings even to an ignorant worshipper, just as the best medicine works even when taken by a person ignorant of its ingredients. It's actually a sarcastic comment, or meaning a sarcastic talk of Uddhava. Uddhava is telling this, right, in the Bhagavatam. In the Bhagavatam, Uddhava is telling, see, these simple women of Vrindavan, they are wandering around in the forest, and seemingly, for a third person who's just watching the gopis, they may think, oh, what sort of women are these? They are all spoiled by improper behavior. They are ignoring their families and their chastity, and they are roaming around in the forest just in search of Krishna, in love of Krishna. What sort of people are they? But actually the truth is that the Supreme Soul Sri Krishna has actually awarded the biggest of the greatest of his mercy only to these gopis. These gopis are the ones who have perfected their life. And the best part is he is also giving his mercy to me, Uddhava's thinking, meaning to himself, that he's such an insignificant worshipper as compared to the gopis. Still, Krishna has given some mercy to him. Just like how a medicine will work. A medicine will work even if it is taken by a person who is ignorant of its ingredients. So you may not know what, when the doctor prescribes a medicine to you, might not know all the ingredients, what is the scientific component of the ingredient and how it works on the antibodies, all that you will not know. You will not know. You will just take, okay, 2 pills a day. You will just take that and you'll be fine. It is going to work on you. Whether you know how the medicine is exactly functioning or what are the components of the medicines or not, if you just take that medicine, it will work on you, right? So like that, Uddhava is telling this Lord is very merciful. Of course, these simple women, they have definitely achieved the greatest perfection and they are definitely great, but the Lord is so merciful that an insignificant worshipper like me, even I have also somewhat attained a little bit of mercy of the Lord. So Uddhava in this verse, he definitely considers himself very unqualified to have the company of the gopis. He's thinking the Lord is so merciful that he has sent me as a messenger to go and meet these wonderful gopis. So he's thinking he is so unqualified, but still, this is the greatness of the mercy of the Lord. The Lord is merciful even to Uddhava, that he has given this very wondrous task, wonderful task of going and meeting the gopis. So considering him, contrasting himself with the gopis, Uddhava is telling that they are Krishna's dearmost devotees, and who am I? Who am I? I've so many times deviated from the path of pure devotional service. I've committed so many aparadhs. Sometimes I've refused to carry out Krishna's instructions where I've just taken him for granted because I've always been with him. Sometimes, because you're too close to a person, you just take that person for granted. I've committed so many aparadhs, but still Krishna, he has, with so much confidence in me, he has given this rare opportunity to do this service of taking the message to the gopis. And he's thinking, these ladies, they were roaming around in the forests of Vrindavan and they have developed the perfection of life. But I am so ignorant. I'm so ignorant and I'm so fallen that I keep deviating from the path of pure devotional service. According to Uddhava, these gopis, they are women who are wandering about in the forest, he's saying. He calls them the roamers of the forest. They are wandering about. In other words, what is he trying to tell? He is trying to tell that these gopis, they have so much intense love for Krishna that Krishna impels them to wander around in the Vrindavan forest where so many of his pastimes took place. So these gopis, they are constantly going around in the forest of Vrindavan, just like you see in the picture of the background. You see the picture. These gopis, they are going around in the forest, they're thinking about Krishna, they're thinking this is where Krishna walked, this is where Krishna performed this pastime. So like that, constantly impelled by the love for Krishna, they are just roaming around in the forest. So like this, Uddhava in this verse, he's judging himself. He's thinking, I am so fallen, who am I compared to these girls? These girls have such saintly qualities and they are so praiseworthy. And he was thinking, how nice is Krishna? By the special power of devotional service to Krishna, even foolish persons like himself have attained the privilege of witnessing the glory of the gopis of Vrindavan. So just like how a powerful flu medicine is effective in driving away the sickness of a patient, even though the patient is completely ignorant of the ingredients and its properties, the Lord's mercy acts on anyone who comes in touch with him. So very beautiful verse. Uddhava talks both about the glory of the gopis. He talks about the glory of the Lord's mercy. He glorifies the Lord also. And he's also thinking about his significant position. Such a beautiful verse with so many emotions is being told by Uddhava. So Krishna is very, very merciful. He's very merciful and he gave the opportunity to Uddhava to meet the gopis. Krishna can award the highest perfection of life to anyone. Even for a saint who's thinking of him without any deviation, very, very strict, nice saint who's always thinking about the Lord, even he also gets mercy of Krishna. Even someone who's irregularly worshipping him, he gives mercy, like many of us. very irregularly worshipping Krishna, even they also receive mercy. Even to someone who has not worshipped him or doesn't have any good fortune of coming in touch with his devotees also, somehow Krishna, he tries to award some mercy somehow. Even little things that a person does, Krishna acknowledges and he gives us mercy somehow. We talk about Agnyat Sukriti. It's not that intentionally maybe someone went and paid obeisances or lit a lamp that he wants devotion. No, just casually when someone has done some sort of thing that is remotely devotional service, also Krishna acknowledges that. Krishna acknowledges that, and when the time is right, he will send a devotee. And the devotee goes and talks about Krishna. Then he gets some attraction towards Krishna consciousness. Then he develops some sort of taste for devotional service and he becomes a devotee. So like that, Krishna is very, very merciful to people in all stages. He is very merciful. And his mercy is so obvious sometimes that you really do not have to search for it in the pages of the scriptures and the Vedas. You don't have to really go through all this to understand the mercy of Krishna. Krishna's mercy is very rare, yet it is like a potent medicine, and it is so effective that even if you take this medicine, even if you take this medicine without understanding the value of it, if you swallow it even once, or even smell it, some medicines you just have to smell, you don't even have to ingest. So even if you do that, it is very, very potent. Very beautiful verse. So the next verse, this is again one verse that has been quoted in the Bhagavatamrta again and again. And we have analyzed this verse several times. So what we will do is we'll read the verse, and even Sanatana Goswami at this point, he says we have analyzed this verse several times. So we'll move on to the next verse. Even he says that. So we will also do that. We'll read the verse and then we'll move ahead. The verse is, when Lord Sri Krishna was dancing with the beautiful gopis of Raja in the Rasa Leela, the gopis were embraced by the arms of Krishna. This transcendental favor was never bestowed upon the goddesses of fortune or the other consorts in the spiritual world. Indeed, never was such a thing even imagined by the most beautiful girls on the heavenly planet, the girls whose bodily luster and aroma resemble the beauty and fragrance of a lotus. What to speak of worldly women who are very beautiful by mundane estimation. We have done this verse several times. So if even the goddesses of fortune are not as fortunate as the gopis, then what can be told about anyone else? What can be told about the apsaras of the heavenly planets or the beautiful beauty queens of this world? Yeah, so definitely the gopis are very, very special. The next verse. The gopis of Vrindavan have given up the association of even their own family people who are very difficult to give up, and they have forsaken the path of chastity to take shelter of Lord Mukunda's lotus feet, which one should search for by Vedic knowledge. Oh, let me be so fortunate as to be one of the bushes, creepers, or herbs in Vrindavan, because the gopis may trample them and bless them with the dust of their lotus feet. Another verse of Uddhava, very, very special classic verse. Oftentimes when we talk about Uddhava, this is one verse that everyone quotes. Oh, Uddhava wanted to be an insignificant creeper or an insignificant blade of grass or a bush in Vrindavan. That is what he hankered for. He wanted the gopis to come and trample on his head. So when we talk about Uddhava, automatically everyone quotes this verse, right? It's a very beautiful verse. This verse has several layers. First, he talks about the glories of the gopis who have given up what is very dear to them. For a person, one's own self is very dear. We have seen this in the previous session also. And his immediate family and everything else, his expansion, they're all very, very dear to him. But these gopis, they have given up the association of their own family people who are family men, especially, who are very difficult to give up. It says family men. So family people who are very difficult to give up, they have forsaken the path of chastity. That is very hard for a woman. That is extremely important. Why? Because they wanted to take shelter at the lotus feet of Lord Mukunda. Mukunda means one who gives liberation. They wanted to go and take shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda. And this Mukunda, how is he to be found? How are people trying to get liberation? They are trying to get liberation by searching through the pages of the Vedas. They are scrolling through the pages of the Vedic knowledge, trying to understand who this Mukunda is, what is the glory of his lotus feet. But these women, see how they have attained the lotus feet of Mukunda. So Now Uddhava is telling, let me be so fortunate as to be one of the bushes or the creepers or the grass or herbs of Vrindavan, so that with the lotus feet of the gopis who have taken shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, let them come and trample me and bless me with the dust of their lotus feet. Very nicely Uddhava says this. Now, once Guru Maharaj was actually giving a class and he was talking about the mood of Uddhava when he was saying this. Uddhava, he was not telling this, okay, let me become that bush or that blade of grass that the gopis come and trample on my head. So he didn't want a board written there, Hare Krishna, this is Uddhava, please come and trample on me. I am very important. I am the important servant of Krishna. So don't miss when you're walking, please make sure you come trample on me and go. He didn't want to be that. He wanted to be an insignificant, not even to be noted, and not even to be noted blade of grass or a bush or a creeper. By chance, when the gopis are walking, they may trample on him. He wanted such a position. He didn't want to say, I am this effulgent blade of grass. I am Uddhava. Please come and trample me. So like that. He wanted to be insignificant. Casually, when the gopis are walking, by chance, if they just trample on me, how wonderful it will be. That is the mood of Uddhava. In utter humility, he was actually reciting this verse. Let's see what Sanatan Goswami has to say. So, Sanatan Goswami, he says, by observing the glories of the gopis and by describing the glories of the gopis in his own words and by meeting the gopis in person, Uddhava has now become completely absorbed in the gopi special mood of meeting Krishna. Gopi special mood of loving Krishna and separation. So in this exalted state, he has now discovered his true heart's desire. He has understood what the real desire of his heart is. And he wants to pray to achieve that final fruit of all services done to Krishna. So therefore, in his next life, he is hoping to become one of the plants in Vrindavan and receive the dust from the gopis' feet. Such a beautiful analysis. Because of seeing them, talking to them, hearing from them, he's got absorbed in that mood. He's taken on the mood of the gopis and he's thinking, these gopis are so wonderful, and I wish by chance some dust particles fall on my head. And this is the perfection of life. See, the gopis, for the sake of Lord Mukunda's lotus feet, they had abandoned everything. These things are very difficult to abandon, impossible to abandon by young women, to abandon relatives, to abandon Vedic standards of behavior, chastity. They have just given up everything and they have just chosen to dedicate themselves to Mukunda Padvim, that is the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna. If you understand Padvim to be in a literal sense, it also means the path through which Mukunda walks. Okay, so these ladies, they are just following the footpath. They are just following the footprints of Mukunda every day. When Krishna is going out in the morning to herd the cows, they are following him to some distance. We saw this in some of our previous sessions, what was happening in Goloka Vrindavan. Some of the gopis were like uncontrollably running behind Krishna or along the shores of the river Yamuna. So like that, you can even take it in a literal sense that they are trying to follow the footsteps of Krishna, following the path of Krishna as he's walking. And in the evening, they are waiting for the return of Krishna. They are eagerly coming out of their households and looking towards the path where Krishna could come. So this Mukunda Padvim can also mean the path of spiritual practices, the path of Bhakti Yoga. These gopis, they have abandoned everything just so that they can engage in pure devotional service, they can engage in Krishna's service without even expecting to obtain him. They just want to serve Krishna. Do they have any expectations? No. Even in separation, they are continuously serving Krishna. So such unique surrender. It is very hard to have such sort of surrender. See, when you're serving someone and you're going to acquire that person, for sure, okay, I'm going to get married to this person. In Swakya Rasa, they know for sure, okay, marriage is there, it's going to happen. But for the gopis, what is there? They are constantly, even in separation, they are constantly surrendered to Krishna. So they are supremely glorious, And but then why have these gopis whose feet are respectable persons set a bad example? Why are they setting a bad example by abandoning their families and abandoning chastity, abandoning the order of their husbands and fathers. Why are they doing that? Because in the world they are going to set a very bad example. If they are the greatest of the devotees, aren't they setting wrong example to the world? The Vedas don't agree to that at all. The Vedas never say you abandon your dharma and run behind someone. No, doesn't say that. But then Uddhava answers that the Vedas themselves, what do they think? They think that pure devotional service to Krishna is the topmost goal of life, and that is the ultimate fruit of all the Vedas. The Vedas themselves are saying that attaining Lord Mukunda's feet is the highest goal. So the Vedas can only strive to achieve the prema like the gopis, but really they are not even achieving it. The Vedas, they are teachers of religious principles to everyone. They are teachers of spiritual knowledge. But even they cannot abandon the Vedic principles like the gopis, and they cannot attain the fruit of what we are telling. Even the Vedas know the ultimate fruit is pure devotional service to Krishna, but even they are not able to do it. So, like this, on this matter, even Krishna is also giving his opinion in the Bhagavad Gita. This is chapter 2, verse number 45 of the Bhagavad Gita. It says the Vedas deal mainly with the subject of the three modes of material nature, Traigunya Vishaya Veda, Nishtraigunya Bhava Arjuna. So, he is telling, oh, Arjuna, become transcendent into these three modes, enough of these three modes. So, like that, even Krishna has a similar opinion. The Vedas also have an opinion that the ultimate fruit is Krishna. Vedascha sarve ahameva vedyo, right? So, the ultimate fruit of everything, what do you know through the Vedas? You should know Krishna through the Vedas. Entire Bhagavad Gita is talking about that. These Vedas, they are only trying to see Krishna, but the gopis seem to have already possessed him by the love of pure devotional service and separation that they are having. So we know that there are stories of how some of the Upanishads personified were performing austerities to become like the gopis, to become gopis in their intense hankering. They wanted to follow the mood of the gopis and become the gopis. But the Upanishads, they are inferior still. Even the personified Upanishads still, though they were hankering to become the gopis, and they did have an opportunity to become the gopis, they're inferior in devotion to the gopis who are being spoken about here in this particular verses. These gopis, the eternal gopis, they are definitely the most the most what do you say? They have actually perfected their lives, and they have shown themselves to be the topmost examples. And they are the ones who have inspired these Upanishadic gopis to become actually gopis. So they are definitely the ones who have received the most mercy from Krishna. And these Upanishads personified, they are thinking they can never receive that sort of mercy that these gopis have attained. Go on to the next verse. The goddess of fortune herself, along with Lord Brahma and all the other demigods who are masters of yogic perfection, can worship the lotus feet of Krishna only within their mind. But during the Rasa dance, Lord Krishna placed his feet upon the gopis' breasts, and by embracing those feet, the gopis gave up all their desires. So they had a very personal association with Krishna. They had a personal association with the lotus feet of Krishna. There are many people, many devotees who are worshipping Krishna constantly. But all the devotees of the Lord, they are constantly meditating on the lotus feet of Krishna. Of course, goddess of fortune, Lakshmi Devi has the great mercy of massaging his lotus feet with her hands. But you see the intimacy of the gopis in the Rasa Leela, who were dancing with Krishna. When the gopis got an opportunity to meet Krishna and dance with him under the moonlit autumn nights, they had such wonderful association with Krishna that they were able to catch on to Mukunda's lotus feet and embrace Mukunda's lotus feet, hold him close to their chest, hold him close to their heart. This is how the gopis had. This is the fortune that the gopis had. So that is what this verse is saying. And Sanatan Goswami, in great detail, he says, actually, there are so many devotees of Krishna, and all of them are glorious. Definitely, all the devotees of Krishna are glorious because they have renounced to a great extent their own personal life. They have renounced a lot of things. But still, the intimacy of the gopis is very, very special. Why? Because they had that unique surrender to Krishna. And this Krishna's lotus feet, they are worshipped by so many people. You see, we see a goddess, the goddess of fortune in Vaikuntha, Lakshmi Devi. She has this great fortune of massaging his lotus feet, and all the opulences are at her command. She is Shri. She is the goddess of all the opulence. She is able to serve Lord Krishna, Lord Vishnu, or Narayana in so many ways. Brahma, Rudra, Indra, all these demigods, they are also worshipping Krishna's lotus feet because they are worshipping the elements of creation also, understanding that these elements of creation are actually manifestations of Krishna. And there are so many people, these devotees like Brahma, Shiva, Rudra, all of them, they are also worshipping Krishna in their mind. There are so many sages in the world who are constantly thinking about Krishna, and their meditation, they are fixing their minds on the lotus feet of Krishna. So, like this great masters of Bhakti Yoga, they are also so many perfected devotees. Okay, we are talking about demigods, you're talking about yogis who are meditating on the lotus feet of Krishna. Even great devotees, great Vaishnavas, even they are also worshipping the lotus feet of Krishna in pure devotional service by hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord. So when you're hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord with pure love, even then you're worshipping the lotus feet of the Lord. But all of these worship mm, is mostly mental. Mental means in the mind, not like mental. Mental is in the mind. So in the mind, they are worshipping Krishna. Some people, they have the very sweet association of Krishna's lotus feet, like Goddess Lakshmi. Some people have that. But then look at the gopis. Their association is even more intimate. This intimacy is so much so that they have the chance to embrace Mukunda's lotus feet and hold them close to their heart, hold that lotus feet close to their heart. So you can imagine the ecstasy that the gopis are feeling when they are serving Krishna like this. This attainment of the gopis is definitely very, very special. This lotus feet, which is the embodiment of all beauty, they are able to hold his feet like that, and they are completely relieved of the pain of separation that they used to have throughout the day when they would embrace this lotus feet. So therefore the gopis are certainly the most intimate and closest devotees of the Lord, because they worship Krishna's lotus feet not just by meditating on him, but they hold it physically by their embrace. And because they were worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord, definitely these gopis are superior to all the other demigods and all the other controllers of this universe. And even, we can see they are definitely superior to Mahalakshmi, who is actually just massaging the lotus feet of the Lord in awe and veneration. Look at the gopis, they could get much more association with the lotus feet of the Lord. And Uddhava, he had become deeply affected by meeting the gopis, and he also imbibed the spirit of prema that the gopis had, and therefore he was thinking, okay, forget about Mukunda's lotus feet, let at least the lotus feet of these gopis who are absorbed in the lotus feet of Mukunda trample on me. Let me be an insignificant creeper so that they can come and trample on me and get this mercy of the gopis. And Shukdev Goswami also, not only did Uddhava think like this, even Shukdev Goswami in the Bhagavatam, in the 10th canto, this is 10th canto, chapter 90, verse number 27, he expresses a similar mood. He says, how could one possibly describe the great austerities performed by these women who have perfectly served him, the spiritual master of the universe, in pure ecstatic love? Thinking of him as their husband, they rendered such intimate services as massaging his feet. Now, actually, when you look at this verse, it may appear that Shukdev Goswami is talking about the glory of the wives of Krishna and Dwaraka, because he says, thinking of him as their husband, they rendered such intimate services as massaging the lotus feet. Actually, the technical word that is used here is bhartr, that is husband, rather than jara, which is paramour. Okay, he has used that word. But actually, the Acharya says that actually inside he's thinking about the gopis of Braja who are burning in the fire of ecstasy of separation. And he doesn't openly mention it because out of the he's scared that he would become ecstatic and he would lose his self-control and stop speaking the Bhagavatam. He doesn't openly say it is actually the gopis, but indirectly he's saying these women who have attained this fortune of being the consorts of the Lord. He talks like that. So even Shukdev Goswami thinks about this. And not only that, another point that we should understand, that it is not that, when we read that men like Uddhava and Shukadev Goswami, Narada Muni, these are all exalted personalities. Some of them are great sannyasis, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. They're all they're great renunciants. When we're talking about, just strictly talking about ashram, you just see that some of them are great renunciants. They're great sannyasis. But one should not think, oh, men means they cannot understand what the love of the gopis is. It's not like that. Even men also, they can understand this mood, and many of them, they have developed gopi bhav, just like the Goswamis, they have developed manjari bhav, and many of our acharyas, they develop this sort of mood of being the follower of the manjaris and the gopis. So it is not that just because a male-bodied person is speaking such verses, it is incompatible. No, it is possible for anyone, because even we see the example of the sages in the Dandakaranya forest. They were great renunciants. The sages in the Dandakaranya forest, when they were roaming around and they saw Lord Ramachandra, they developed this intense hankering to become a consort of Lord Ramachandra. They wanted to marry or be associated with Lord Ramachandra in such a mood. But then at that time, Lord Ramachandra was not able to take more than one wife, and he definitely gave them the benediction that they would become gopis. And these were the Rishichari gopis who later got the association of Lord Sri Krishna. So this is also Srila Sanatana Goswami. He quotes these verses from the Padma Purana. Lord Shiva speaking to his wife Parvati, describing this history of what happened to these sages in Dandakaranya forest. दृष्ट्वा रामं हरिं तत्र भुक्तुमैच्छन् सुविग्रहं ते सर्वे श्रीत्वम् आपन्नाः samudbhutascha gokule. When they saw Lord Hari in the beautiful form of Lord Ramachandra, at once they desired him. Thus they all took birth as women in Gokul, and by their lusty attraction to Lord Sri Hari, obtained him as their husband. In this way, they gained liberation from the ocean of material existence. The Kurma Mahapurana also states, Agniputra Mahatmanas tapasa Shritvam Apire Bhartaram cha Jagatyonim Vasudevam Majam Vibhum. By performing austerities, the wise sons of Agni took birth as women and obtained their husband, Lord Vasudeva, the unborn and unlimited source of all creation. So these are some of the devotees who are in male bodies who attain perfection as quoted in scripture. Okay. So Sanatana Goswami makes a point here. Move on to the next verse from the Bhagavatam of Uddhava. Again and again I offer my respects to the dust from the feet of the women of Nanda Maharaj's cowherd village. When these gopis loudly chant the glories of Sri Krishna, the vibration purifies the three worlds. So he is again and again offering his obeisances as he is concluding his glorification, concluding the glorification of the gopis. So Uddhava, he falls down flat on the ground, and in the very path of the lotus feet of the gopis have walked, he just falls down, he falls flat, and he picks a dust from that path and he places it on his head, and he feels that this is the greatest treasure that is possible to be obtained in this entire universe. And Uddhava is so absorbed in his ecstasy that he begins to offer these homages, and he falls down and he picks the dust and puts it on his head right in the presence of the gopis with deep reverence. So like this, Uddhava, he is paying his obeisances again and again to just the dust and the footprints of the gopis of Vrindavan. Next, Parikshit Maharaj, now that he has sung the praises of the young gopis of Vraja, he turns his attention to the most excellent of all the gopis, the blessed Srimati Radharani, whose ecstatic love for Krishna is so deep. It is so deep that even words cannot do justice. So King Parikshit, towards the end of this series of verses, he just wants to quote one final verse about Srimati Radharani, how she hankers to drink the nectar of Krishna's lips, so much so that when she hears that Krishna's flute song from a distance, as he enters Vrindavan forest, she imagines this flute to be tasting so much nectar, and she becomes envious of this flute as her rival lover. And all her girlfriends, they stand and talk about this. And Srimati Radharani, when everyone is talking about the flute, at that time Srimati Radharani, she takes the opportunity to interject and give her comment about the flute. So as Parikshit was quoting these verses of Uddhava from the Bhagavatam, he thought, okay, as a final verse, I must speak what Srimati Radharani said. And he got reminded of the flute, and this he quotes one verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. This is 10:21:9, from the chapter 21 of the 10th canto. He quotes this verse. Actually, this verse was spoken by Srimati Radharani to Lalita Sakhi. So that is what the Acharyas are saying. That is what Sanatana Goswami is revealing. 10:21:9 of Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken by Srimati Radharani to Lalita Sakhi. So what was this verse? She says, "My dear gopis, what auspicious activities must the flute have performed to enjoy the nectar of Krishna's lips independently and leave only a taste for us gopis, for whom that nectar is actually meant. The forefathers of the flute, the bamboo trees, shed tears of pleasure. His mother, the river, on whose bank the bamboo tree was born, feels jubilation, and therefore her blooming lotus flowers are standing like hairs on her body." Very nice. She gives a very beautiful description. She's feeling envious of the flute because the flute is always on the lips of Krishna, and the flute is so greedy. The flute is drinking all the nectar, leaving just a drop, maybe a remnant, little bit for the gopis. But actually, the nectar from Krishna's lips is the rightful claim only for the gopis. But this flute is unnecessarily taking away everything. And look at the trees and the river. The river was the mother from the bamboo tree from which the flute is being made, is feeling horripilations, thinking about the glory of her grandson, of a great son, of a wonderful son. And because of that, she's having lotus flower blooming everywhere. And the family members, who are the rest of the trees who are there on the banks of the river, they are also feeling great happiness, and they are shedding tears of ecstasy by the flowing sap. So like this, Srimati Radharani, she talks about the flute of Krishna, and she just describes how much she hankers for the association of Sri Krishna. So Srila Sanatana Goswami tells, of course, this verse is being spoken by Srimati Radharani, and she was telling all her friends, headed by Lalita Sakhi, she was telling what this flute has done. Huh? What is the glory of this flute? How did this flute earn the blessing of enjoying the nectar from Krishna's lips? If she could find out what the flute has done, she thought that she could obtain the same favor as the flute. After all, the nectar of Krishna's lips actually belongs to the gopis. It doesn't even belong to this flute. And this flute, what right does it have? Maximum, it has the right of being held by Lord Damodar in his hand, or maximum close to his chest, or even in his waist. He can tuck his flute in his waist. Why should this flute go on to the lips of Lord Govinda and drink everything? Drink all the nectar from his lips. So like this, Srimati Radharani, she says, actually, we are the ones who are the rightful owners, and this flute is unnecessarily claiming all the ownership of his lips. And if he continues with this audacity to drink all the nectar, then we are going to steal this flute from Krishna and hide this flute and then keep him in a very safe place so that Krishna can never find it again. So like this, she talks about the glory of the flute, and she thinks in a mood of, I wish I could be the flute, and this flute is unnecessarily taking away all that I actually deserve to take. And then she also talks about the mother of the flutes. The mother of the flute is actually the river where the trees are growing, on whose banks the trees are growing. So she says these rivers, they are so happy about the success of their son. Their son has achieved a grand success of going on to the lip of Krishna. So they are so happy that these groves of lotuses that is flowing in the river, it is like the horripilations that they are having. when your hair stands erect in jubilation, those are called as horripilations. So what is happening? These lotus flowers are blooming like horripilations throughout the river, and the rest of the relatives, these bamboo trees and the other trees on the banks, they are erupting in ecstasy. They are having ecstatic tears and goosebumps, and they're crying profusely like the sap that is flowing out from these trees. So like this, the Radharani, she was glorifying the float, she was glorifying river Yamuna, she was also glorifying the trees. Like this, she was glorifying everybody. At the same time, she was telling what was there in her heart. She was telling this float, he has taken everything that actually belongs to me. So like this, she was even glorifying the glory of Yamuna in another way. She was telling that Yamuna is very fortunate because Krishna gets into Yamuna and he plays there along with the flute. So when he gets into the Yamuna and he dips in the Yamuna's waters at that time, this Yamuna also has the chance of drinking the nectar from Krishna's lips. The Yamuna river also gets a few drops. She is also very, very fortunate. Whatever is remaining that the flute has left, Yamuna gets the opportunity. So she is also very, very fortunate. And sometimes the trees on the banks of the river, they are crying out of unhappiness. They're flowing sad because they're crying out of unhappiness because the river has taken away the remaining nectar from Krishna's lips. So like this, she gets into this ecstasy where she very poetically sometimes glorifies the trees as being very fortunate. Sometimes she sees even these trees are also crying because they are not getting this nectar from Krishna's lips. They are also becoming very, very sad. So like this, Radharani, she is the topmost crest jewel of all the gopis, and she is the internal potency of the Lord himself. She actually glorifies everyone else in Vrindavan, including the flute, and she describes how much she is hankering for the association of the Lord. Like this, beautiful verses are being quoted by Srila Sanatan Goswami about the glories of the gopis. And then Parikshit Maharaj says, Lord Krishna, the ultimate resort of all living entities, is also called as Devaki Nandan or Yashoda Nandan. He is the son of Devaki and Yashoda. He is the guide of the Yadu dynasty, and with his mighty arms he kills everything inauspicious and every man who is impious. By his presence he destroys all misfortune for all living entities, moving and inert. His blissful smiling face always increases the lusty desires of the gopis of Vrindavan. May he be glorious and happy. So we are going to stop here for now. And in our final session that will be next week, we'll just read the concluding, or rather describe the concluding verses of the Brihad Bhagavatamrta as spoken by Parikshit to Mother Uttara, and what message he has to tell Mother Uttara, and what Phalashruti he has to tell for all the readers and listeners who have been listening to this for the past 2 years. And after that, we will conclude quickly in the first 20-25 minutes. We will conclude the Brihad Bhagavatamrta, and the remaining half an hour, we'll quickly revise everything that we have seen from book 1 till the end of book 2. And with that, we'll take realizations from all the devotees. So we'll stop here for today. Anyone has any questions, comments, realizations, corrections, please go ahead. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, a very nice class. So what I liked is how they were how Radharani was talking about the flute. I was really, this flute was actually alive or something? Or I was seriously, I was surprised, and I was wow.
Okay.
That was kind of, that was not weird, but I thought that was kind of unusual, because I never saw a flute feeling like a real human, so and so that was kind of, I think it's funny, but I should not say this, but I just think that's kind of funny how a flute feels like a human. So
Yes.
even though it's not actually funny, but
Yes, yes, I understand what you're saying. I understand your mood, Anshu. Yes, and as you already know, everything with Krishna is actually animate. Yes, but this the mood of a person who's hankering to be with Krishna, how she feels about something that Krishna is possessing. So in love,
Yeah.
she's speaking like that. Yeah. Thank you, Anshi. You're so sweet. Thank you. Anyone has any questions or comments to add?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Jai Govind Prabhu. Please accept my humble obeisance.
I have just one question, Mataji. I'm asking is from the understanding point of view to reconcile two contradictions.
Uh-huh.
Gopis don't have the fault; they are the perfect devotees.
Uh-huh.
So on one hand, we know devotees are compassionate to other devotees and they want to share everything what they have, be it Krishna's mercy. They can sacrifice their own share and give it to others. But same times we hear that gopis were very possessive, why Krishna's flute is being shared or why his lips are shared, and it reflects a little bit of enviousness to others.
Mm-hmm.
So these two things seems to be like a little contradictory. I don't know. I know this is not a fault in the gopis. In the love, one gets a possessiveness, but at the same time, devotees are compassionate. So how do we reconcile these two contradictory statements? About the gopis.
Very nice, Prabhu. It's a very valid question also. So sometimes when we are relishing love, a rasa that a, a person has towards Krishna, these emotions are quite natural. I mean, it's natural to think, oh, she's so fortunate. She's drinking everything. She's not. This flute is so fortunate. He's drinking everything. He's not giving me anything. I want some nectar. So that kind of emotion is quite natural. But her nature, as you said, is definitely non-envious. She doesn't want to think that the flute should not get. In fact, she'll be the first one to actually recommend the flute to Krishna. That these are emotions of love. When we love someone a lot, these different flow of thoughts come into a person. So when you are really in love with someone, you think, oh, I wish I could be there. But then at the same time, you don't want that person to be deprived of other people who love him or her. Like even when you have a very close relative, you want to take some time from them. Yet you do not want him to feel uncomfortable where he's deprived of of the love from other people. So we can reconcile somewhat like that. Did I make sense? As Prabhu, yeah.
That helps. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah. Thank you, Ajay Govind Prabhu. And nice to see you, Prabhu.
My pleasure to have the nice discussion. I'm not regular here, but I hear offline many times.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Preethi, Vilasini, Mataji. All glories to Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj. Thank you for a wonderful class. You said 2 years. I'm like, it's been 2 years. I'm amazed. I cannot believe that it's been 2 years that we've been listening to Brihad Bhagavatamrta. I'm kind of sad that it's going to end.
Slightly,
I was thinking,
yeah, 1 month less, that's all. Yeah.
I was running around trying to find a quote. Radhanath Swami Maharaj was giving class, Radha Ashtami yesterday, 2 days ago, right? It was yesterday. And he was talking about the flute. And he was saying something. Oh my God! I wrote it down.
Yes.
I don't know if anybody else saw that. You heard he said something like that the music that is coming out of the flute is the love that Krishna feels for each and every one of his devotees, or something to that.
Yeah.
I can't remember. Do you remember? Does anybody remember exactly what it was? But it was the most.
Me too.
Very similar thing, yeah.
Does anybody? I was running around trying to find my piece of paper that I wrote it on, and I couldn't find it. So I was hoping maybe one of you listened. But that's what reminded me when you were describing the flute. It was reminding me of that. She's talking about tasting. Radharani's talking about tasting the love. And Radhanath Swami was saying how that's his love coming through as music.
Yeah.
And it was just such a wonderful, wonderful thing. That was one thing. And the other thing, two other things. I was thinking about what Anshu was saying, that it was really funny that the flute has life. And I was thinking about all these Disney movies, how all the animation, all the inanimate objects have life. So the perverted reflection of the spiritual world is right there. That's what I was So,
yes, yes.
so you now, if you ever watch one of those Disney movies, you'll never look at it the same because you'll be thinking of in the spiritual world, this is actually what really happens, right? And
Good
then,
one.
and the other thing you said, and I can't remember completely, but you had said when you were explaining about Uddhava, you were saying how, um, oh gosh, how I guess I came to the understanding of that's why we follow in the footsteps of the gopis, um, by thinking by continuously listening to and meditating upon those pastimes of the gopis, we can actually attain that mood of the gopis. I was kind of understanding what Prabhupada, why we are dasanudasanudas,
Mm-hmm.
why we are raganuga bhaktis, why we are following,
Following
because
the Bhagavad Gita, yeah.
that's the process, and that's the
Right.
essence,
Yes.
the essence of the process, if
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say. So those are a couple of things that came to my mind. It was just a wonderful class, and it was so good to see you.
Same here. I'm just gazing at you. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. I'm going to find that quote. I'm going to look at Radhanath Swami's class again. I'm going to write that quote down. I'm going to stick it on my window, on my mirror every morning. That was the most beautiful quote that I heard. Hare Krishna.
Hari bol, hari bol.
Hare Krishna.
Anyone else wants to add or any other comments or questions?
Hare Krishna Mataji, Dhanvat Pranam, all praise to Srila Prabhupada, and all ministry a wonderful, wonderful service of this great Bhagavatamrta class. And as Mataji said, really it doesn't feel that this should end so soon. And I think about the flute, one of the classes was again, I don't know who took the class, whether it was you class only, right? But then there are types of flutes, right?
Yeah.
There are the types of flutes which Krishna uses during different times.
Yeah.
So I think on the flute itself there can be a big class of how the flutes are
Yes,
formed. Like
next time.
I recently remember the class which we had for the kids for the bamboo, how they used to
Yes.
like bamboo asks like is it really necessary, and then you do it, and that is the reason how they are so much like cherished by the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful class, Mataji. Wonderful, wonderful. Like so many things are there as if like I don't know. I always now it doesn't happen that I can write down notes because it is a that it's not happening right now. But then these points, so many points are there which like Uddhava's aspects of looking into how gopis are so elevated. And also one thing, Mataji, where I think I did not get that point. If you mentioned or I heard it wrong, that our acharyas they follow the gopis and the Goswamis they follow the footsteps of the Manjaris. Did you say that, or did I hear it wrong? I don't know. If I heard it wrong.
No, it may not be like that necessarily. I just said generally we are all recommended to, what happens is the Goswamis, they are Manjaris themselves. That's what I meant to say. Actually, they are themselves Manjaris and they had attained perfection. Uh, Following when we say gopis manjari, sometimes Mataji it just becomes interchangeable. What we mean is following in the footsteps of those kind of devotees like the gopis and the manjaris. So,
Okay.
I was just trying to make a point that the Goswamis themselves were actually manjaris. So that's the point that I was trying to make. Thank
Okay,
you.
got it, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sita Preethi Mataji. Dandavats, and thank you for always taking time out. Thank you, Mataji.
Yeah.
Hare Hare Krishna Preethi Vilasini Mataji.
Oh, welcome, Adiki Mataji.
Dharma Pranam. Uh, like when we say we hear everything is not conscious.
Mm.
In a spiritual world,
Mm.
everything is conscious. Land, the trees, the water of Jamuna, everything is conscious. So flute is also conscious. So that's why fruit can drink the nectar of Krishna's lips. Hare Krishna. Because everybody is desiring, especially Radharani and all the gopis, they are desiring. So fruit also wants it. And fruit goes through so much austerities when before it coming
Mm.
in the hand of Krishna.
Yes. It has to be punched into so many holes. It has to be smoothened out. Yes.
Yeah,
Very beautiful, Mataji.
very
Thank you
nice.
so much.
Thank you very much for the class.
Thank you,
I
Kamali.
miss all those. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Actually, you were the one who asked, who initiated the
Huh?
Bhagavatamrta. You asked for the Bhagavatamrta, and we started based on your suggestion.
Yeah. But
Hare Krishna Mataji, can
I
I share
didn't
one?
know about all this deep going just deep. Still the bottom is not found.
Yes.
So much deep.
Hmm.
I just read it's just a superficial and it was so much attractive. But
Thank
then now we hearing from you, you just take us so deep. Thank you very much.
you. All glories to
Thank
Prabhupada, Nathan Goswami. Thank you so much, Mataji.
you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Anshu, you wanted to say something?
Yeah. So the one more point I wanted to say was like Radharani was like she was not feeling that jealous, but like I felt like Radharani was like feeling jealous that all of the flute was like taking all the sweet nectar from Krishna's lotus lips. Like so that was like one more point that I wanted to share, like how Radharani was like feeling jealous, not jealous, but like in a good way.
In a good way.
Yeah, so
Very true, Anshu. Very sweet.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hari bol, Akshita and Vrinda. Hari bol, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Very, very beautiful class. How gopis are glorified along with how Uddhava is also glorified so beautifully.
Mm.
About about Uddhava, I mean, Mataji said that I have some questions about it. You said that he was thinking about Krishna from childhood.
Mm.
So how I mean he had heard about him and then he was just thinking about Krishna, is it like that?
Yes.
So I mean I don't know much about his background and childhood, Mataji. So how he meets Krishna first, like only after he leaves Vrindavan?
Mataji, actually, details are not there. There is just one verse that says that since childhood he was always fixed on thoughts of Krishna. He would always think about Krishna. And I'll read that verse probably. Let's read that verse. Which canto? It should be in third canto, maybe. Uddhava Maitreya Samvad, when it begins. Which is Maitreya. Let me see. Remembrance of Lord Krishna. Here you go. Here you go. This is Canto 3, Chapter 2, verse number 2. Translation. You can open. I can do screen share. Let me do screen share. You can see now. Screen share.
Yeah, yes, Mataji.
So it says he was. Okay, here you go. He was one who, even in his childhood, at the age of 5 years, was so absorbed in the service of Lord Krishna that when he was called by his mother for morning breakfast, he did not wish to have it. Purport by Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada Ki Jai. From his very birth, Uddhava was a natural devotee of Lord Krishna, or a Nitya Siddha, a liberated soul. From natural instinct, he used to serve Lord Krishna even in his childhood. He used to play with dolls in the form of Krishna. He would serve the dolls by dressing, feeding, and worshipping them, and thus he was constantly absorbed in the play of transcendental realization. These are the signs of an eternally liberated soul. An eternally liberated soul is a devotee of the Lord who never forgets him. Human life is meant for reviving one's eternal relation with the Lord, and all religious injunctions are meant for awakening this dormant instinct of the living entity. The sooner this awakening is brought about, the quicker the mission of human life is fulfilled. In a good family of devotees, the child gets the opportunity to serve the Lord in many ways. A soul who is already advanced in the devotional service has the opportunity to birth in such an enlightened family. This is confirmed in the Bhagavatam, Shuchinam Srimatam Gehe Yoga Brashto Abhijayate. Even a fallen devotee gets the opportunity to take birth in the family of a well-situated Brahmana or a rich, well-to-do mercantile family. In both these families, there is good opportunity to revive one's sense of God consciousness automatically, because particularly in these families, the worship of Lord Krishna is regularly performed, and the child gets the opportunity to imitate the process of worship called as Archanam. The Pancharatraki formula for training persons in devotional service is temple worship, whereby the neophytes get the opportunity to learn devotional service to the Lord. Maharaj Parikshit also used to play with Krishna dolls in his childhood. In India, the children in good families are still given dolls of the Lord like Rama and Krishna, or sometimes the demigods, so that they may develop aptitude of service to the Lord. By the grace of the Lord, we were given the same opportunity by our parents, and the beginning of our life was based on this principle. Such a sweet purport. Prabhupada is talking about himself also. Very
Yeah, this is so nice. Thank you, Mataji, for
These are
reading me that.
the series of verses that talk about Uddhava's childhood. Yeah,
Okay.
here, the next verse also. Uddhava thus served the Lord continually from childhood, and in his old age, that attitude of service never slackened. As soon as he was asked about the message of the Lord, he at once remembered about him. Uddhava undoubtedly became old, but this did not mean that his spirit became old. His service attitude matured on the transcendental plane, and therefore, as soon as he was questioned by Vidura about Lord Krishna, he at once remembered the Lord by reference to the context and forgot himself on the spiritual plane. That is the sign of pure devotional service. Very nice. So these are the verses, Mataji. Canto 3, chapter 2, 1, 2, 3, you can see. Verses 1 to 3.
Yeah, yeah. Sure, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you. And you talked about the flute, how river is flute's mother. So I was thinking flute should be a daughter, right? Or it's a son. I mean, not a good question.
Daughter, must be daughter. Yeah, even I feel. Or let's just see the verses, whether they are using it in a male context or a female context. Then we should be able to figure it out. Let me just stop share and then pick up the verse again, do a start share. That's a good point, When I was thinking of that actually when I was talking. So this is what's the verse number Bhagavatam? Yeah, 10:21:9. Let's open that. 10:21:9. 10:21. Okay, I'll do a screen share again. Here we go. Okay, Gopya Kim Acharadayam Kushalam Sma Venur. Venur only they have put. They have not Saha, nothing. Huh? Let's go through the word to word. Gopyaha, the gopis came, what Acharat performed, I am this. Only this has come. Kushalam Sma, certainly. Venuhu, the flute. Damodra Adhara Sudham Api Gopikanam Bhunte Swayam independently. Some the taste, his bodies Ashahu Umuchu. Yeah, it just says Venuhu. It looks like a male indication. Boy only it shows.
Mataji,
Okay.
Mataji in
Okay.
the purport it says his mother. It in the purport
Purport. Yeah, his
it
mother.
says
Yes.
his mother.
His
Yes.
mother. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much, Lakshmi.
Yeah, because in Hindi and other Marathi also, it's we call it feminine.
Mm.
So I was thinking that.
Vastika.
Yeah, but okay, it's the son. It's the son of river. Okay. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mataji. And the highlight of the statement was like because of gopis, everyone's life has been nourished.
Mm.
That's such a
Beautiful, right?
wonderful statement. Yeah, that was the highlight. I mean, that's such a true glory of gopis.
Very
Very,
true.
very beautiful.
100%, 100%. That's
Yeah.
a very beautiful statement. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We are also getting nourished by your classes, Mataji. Thank you so much for all your wonderful classes. Thank you so much.
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
I mean, I would like to take this opportunity. Oh, sorry, Mataji, you were saying something.
No. Go ahead, Mataji.
No. I mean, I would take this opportunity and I'm getting nourished by all the preachers who are all preaching on the Bhakti Sangha, including you, Mataji. Thank you so much for another beautiful class.
They are also highly nourished by you, Mataji, in your children's classes. It's
Oh,
very
no. No. Oh, no, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Lakshmi Mataji.
Yes, Mataji. Sometimes your classes will be very intense, Mataji, with lots of informations, like we have lots of details. And sometimes your class, you see, we just surrender our soul into the person that you're explaining. So here we are totally surrendered into the feet of gopis. Such a wonderful class, Mataji. Like we can feel it, actually, we can feel it. And Mataji, some of the point that I want to mention was, you said that Uddhava was following the gopis and he was completely absorbed in this special mood of loving Krishna. And I remembered yesterday Adi Gadadhar Prabhu in Chaitanya Charitamrita's class, he was giving an answer, reply to a Prabhuji. And he said to get a mood, you have to go and associate with the devotees who have that mood.
Correct.
So this was a perfect example for that. So Uddhav, following the gopis, he just got the mood of them, loving Krishna. So it is a perfect example, Mataji, while we are telling to others.
Very nice connection. Beautiful.
Yes, Mataji, I can really connect with it. And the second one, Mataji, the question, like the gopis abandon everything, particularly during the rasa dance. And this is a very high level thing because we cannot talk with everybody so easily. Like they abandoned the kids they were feeding, the husbands. So literally others cannot understand it. Even I have that question always, how could they do it? But your answer was so fulfilling for me. It was so satisfying that you said the Vedas itself are trying to reach Krishna, and they say how to reach Krishna. But the gopis, they have reached Krishna. They have surrendered to Krishna and they got Krishna. So so the people, if we depend on Veda and the people who are like a expert in Veda, they can still be trying. But the gopis, they have reached them. And that makes them to go to that level, they can abandon everything material and go for Krishna. So it was such a fulfilling answer for me. It satisfied so much for me, Mataji. So yes, Mataji, really I got the answer. And the third point, which I loved so much, Mataji, they made a very big, like in the flow, I got a flow, Mataji, well, regarding the lotus feet of Krishna. Lakshmi ji, she had the fortune to use her hands. She can massage with hands. And Brahma, Rudra, Indra, they can use their mind. And the gopis, they were using the heart. So that is something very, very divine. And we cannot do any of this. So what we can do is, we can even not go to nothing. So we can follow the foot of Uddhava, who was following gopis. So I think we cannot really follow gopi. We can only follow the feet of Uddhava.
Like how he was trying to follow the feet of the gopis.
Yeah, so we are not equal to it. Like I'm not equal to Laura, anyway, not near to Uddhava. So I can what do is I can follow Uddhava. So like the chain is continuing. So that chain was so good, Mataji.
And next point, you said, Mataji, very important point, that even the renounced sannyasis, they can feel the pain of gopis.
Mm. Mm.
So you see sometimes in the material life also, there may be some pain or some worries for some people. And the other people, when we hear, daily we hear something happened, we cannot feel the pain. We'll just take it as a news and we pass away.
Yes.
The normal people cannot do it. Some people who are very sentimental, they get affected. Some devotees, we get more affected. And these renounced sannyasis, they're actually renounced. They don't come to all this circle. They don't want to come into the picture of any feeling. They say it's a drama or something. And you said these renounced sannyasis are feeling the pain of gopis, means how much intense their pain of separation should be. So that makes me understand how much pain they should be.
And how
So
glorious
that,
they are.
yeah, and so like the gopis, when you explain about this, the level is going high in my heart. That what to say, they're so higher level. And one question, Mataji, that you said that the two wise sons of Agni, they took birth as a women and married Lord Vasudeva. So who are they, Mataji? You're mentioning
The
to?
sons of Agni. There are a set
Yeah,
of
yeah.
sons of Agni who took birth, and they were.
Any,
It's there. These past life of many of the gopis are discussed in Garga Samhita. The
okay.
Rishikari gopis, the Munichari gopis. There are a set of gopis, Agni's sons. Some of the sons they wanted to have this devotion to Krishna and conjugal rasa. They also perfected their lives like that. So they are all their past births are discussed. I don't have details, but yes, they performed austerities to that end, and yeah, there were different sets of different gopis
Okay, Mataji.
who
It's
actually
Garga Samhita. It's
to Vrindavan, who took birth in Vrindavan and served in Krishna's pastimes.
Yes, wonderful, Mataji. And finally, Radharani and the float, everybody has discussed. So it was so wonderful. We cannot talk more about, since Radharani is talking so much about it. No more we can, but it's very, very beautiful. And Mataji, like a curiosity question. So, how did Krishna get the first flute, Mataji? Like, when did he get it, or who gave it to him? First flute. In what age he got it? No, okay.
I can answer. I don't know the answer. If someone knows, please answer. Yeah. No idea. I
So,
see him even as a baby having a flute. So and
yeah, like I'm trying to understand. Did his father make it for him, or who gave it to him, who presented? Because he always hold it, right? We can never see him without the flute. So intimate, like a best companion.
someone who knows local Brajlila, like Dinabandhu Prabhu, they'll be able to say. I don't.
Okay, Mataji, no problem. Anyway, Mataji, so this class was so divine, Mataji. Like we totally surrendered into the lotus feet of gopis. So since we cannot do it, we are not so fortunate. I have to totally surrender into the lotus feet of Uddhav. So he's taking us to, he may take us to the lotus feet of gopis. And thank you so much, Mataji, for taking us to there. And your classes are always divine, very special. Like today, full day, I can be in this mood of it. I can continue with this mood, spiritual mood. Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Jai Sachinandana.
All glories to all our Guru and Dasi. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Preethi, Vilasini. Can I add something if you have time?
Yes.
I was just going to say, following Gita Preethi Mataji's comment, that this verse that you were reading about Uddhava is one of my favorite verses in the Bhagavatam. Because in that purport, Srila Prabhupada explains how Uddhava actually, although he's in the world here, he immediately returned to the spiritual world. And he's there. And then, but his body was here, and he was explaining that. And that reminded me immediately of Guru Maharaj during one of the Gaur Purnima festivals a couple of years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, where you could feel that mood, because it seemed to me that everybody was even saying that he was not in his body. And, no matter, obviously, the physical disabilities he has, you can see that is not, how Srila Prabhupada is explaining how old age doesn't dampen that devotion. It just becomes more potent. That even sickness does not dampen that potency.
Wow.
But it also just, it becomes more potent. And so I was thinking, we are following in the footsteps of pure devotees because our Guru Vargas are, epitomize that mood of Uddhava, mood of gopis, mood of all those. So we are indeed blessed. So that's what I was thinking. We are indeed blessed to have that opportunity to be able to follow in the footsteps. So this was, like I said, all these people sharing all these different realizations just adds so much more sweetness to the narration of Brihad Bhagavatamrta and the stories. So all glories to the Vaishnavas. Thank you so much for the association.
And you too for adding all the time. Whenever you speak, we are like, yes, 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 bring it on. I want to hear more.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Shri Lakshmi Mataji for your beautiful realization. It was very nice to hear.
Hare Krishna, Vinita Gandharvika. Hare Krishna, Vrinda, where is she? I don't hear her.
Mataji, yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Very well.
I will take only 1 second.
Yeah.
Koti Pranam. Shridham Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Uddhav ji ki jai. Shridham Vrindavan Dham Gopis ki jai. Srila Prabhupada, Srila Gurudev, Shri Shri Radha Gopinath ki jai. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for all the realization. It is touch to heart, Mataji. I hear from Bhakti Siddhant sir, Vedant Hospital, HG Vishwarup Prabhu, that this Odhava is like a he has so much proud that nobody is worship Lord Krishna like he. So Mataji, Lord Krishna take a message and Uddhava entering the Shridham Vrindavan Dham. Then he sees the mood of little creepers and flowers and little gwalas and gopis and the mood of separation and the mood of service. In a separation also they are servicing Lord Krishna so sincerely. So Uddhava is crying and crying that I think that nobody is greater than me, and see the mood of gopis, how sincerely they are service in a separation of Lord Krishna, and so nicely explain that even though he is the bow down to all the sage, he accept the defeat of all the hands of the coward boys of Raja while resting with them. Despite being saved by millions of servants, he personally milk his cow and take them for the purchased ground for the grazing to fresh grass to Shridham Vrindavan Dham. In spite of innumerable goddess of fortune by being his consort, his mind is stolen by the side belongs the glance of the simple coward maidens of Raja hand by the Srimati Shri Radhika Rani, and the feels greater pleasure in hearing the satisfied word of the gopis, such as Lalita Devi, then by hearing the Vedic hymns chant by the yogis in the glorification. The residents of Raja are undoubtedly the most excellent devotee of the Lord Krishna, for it is their association for which Shyamasundara himself hanker for the association of Gopis and Gwalas association. These residents of Raja are obliged to Krishna being the Supreme Lord, being covered in the potency of Yamuna Maharani and Yoga, and rather think Krishna to be their very dear master, friend and son are beloved. They loved him as their very life and soul, and their affection of their which is completely submitted in a madhurya and Vatsalya Ras, and not having any Aishwarya in Shridham Vrindavan Dham. It is the dearest of Raja Sundari, Shri Shama Sundara Shri Lord Krishna. So Lord Krishna sent to Uddhava to see the mood of serving of Lord Krishna in a separation mood. See, all the gopis, Gwalas, Nanda Baba, Yasoda Maiya, creepers, flowers, peacock, cow, how in a separation mood also they are like Radhe, Radhe, they are just worship Lord Krishna. So that this is the lesson for Uddhava, that what is the mood to serve Lord Krishna and Srimati Radharani. That's why Lord Krishna sent to Uddhava in Sridham Vrindavan Dham. If I made any mistake, please forgive me. Hare Krishna, Hari Bol, Dandvat Pranam to Vaishnava.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Very nice, Mataji. Right from your heart, so beautifully explained. Thank you so much for adding that point, Mataji. Thank you so much. Very good.
Thank you so much for your service, Mataji. We think that it is only 2 days past and we just hear and hear why you, like before 10 years when I see the serial, when when it is very nice things is coming, the serial is stopped like that. Why you stop Shridham Vrindavan Dham Leela? Just like you just explain Katha, 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 Vrindavan Dham Katha. We all feel like that, and all Mataji's realization is tattooed. There is Mataji some connection in last, but that we are staying far, 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 but still our heart is like a glorification of Srimati Radharani and hearing of Srimati Radharani. Just Mataji, like we are staying in a one hall and hearing Krishna Katha, Mataji. The mood to enter in Shridham Vrindavan Dham is made by all Mataji, and you are the main gopi of Lalita Shakhi and Vishakha Sakhi. Thank you, Mataji. Dandvat Pranam.
Thank you, Vrinda Gopika Mataji. Thank you for your very heartfelt realizations, and all glories to Srila Prabhupada and our Guru Vargas and such a wonderful group of devotees, Mataji. They are, all of you are really amazing. Thank you, Mataji. Okay, Mataji, we can, anyone else has any questions or comments? We can end the call.
Mataji, very, very beautiful class.
Mataji, very beautiful class, Mataji.
Vrinda Gopi ki jai.
Mataji.
Vrinda Gopi. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Thank you.
Vrindavan Dham ki jai.
Jai.
Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Goswami ki jai, all our Guru Vargas ki jai, all the assembled devotees ki jai, Shri Shri
Jai.
Bhagavatamrta ki jai.
Jai.
Guru Desi
Jai. Patitanam Pavnebhyo.
Vyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo.
Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Jai.
Devotee worship.
Jai.
Hari Bol.